Hey guys, Ningen here bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and today we are going to talk about the Battlefield EZA'S that are potentially coming to global with part 2 of the Christmas celebration. Now, these guys have been on the horizon for a while. We've obviously known about them from their release on JP, but we haven't really had an idea of when they were going to fit in to the global timeline. As you can see here, the release date was the 30th of July, so it's been a good 5 months or so since these dropped on JP, and usually content wise we're like 4 to 5 months behind JP, but EZA's have been a bit weird, like the fact that we still don't have TEQ Golden Frieza's EZA. But there's a big hint that these guys will be coming with part 2 of the celebration, and that is the fact that we were all given a red stone at the start of part 1, and along with the typical EZA units that we've been used to seeing on that list for quite a long time, all of these units are now available on that list, aside from the TEQ Android 13, because he's a free-to-play farmable unit. So the fact that all of these units are now available with the redstone, it kind of makes you wonder, like, why would they give you the option to pick one of them unless they were about to drop their EZA's? So I would say it's a very good prediction that they will come with part 2 of the celebration. So we're going to go over them all very briefly. Very strangely, the weakness to this EZA is the Ginyu Force, which of course there's kind of only like one team you can run. And the only real change is whether or not you have physical LR Ginyu. But basically you go through the stages and you fight each of the different enemies that get their EZA's, all the way up into stage 30, and then of course if you carry on past stage 30 to just get the Hercule statues, you will be against Vegeta. So it's kind of weird, it's like a typical 30 stage EZA, but with like multiple different enemies, because so many of the units get awakenings. But you do get all of the medals like at the same time, so at least you don't have to replay multiple stages and all that kind of annoying stuff. They don't increase the reward in terms of like the orbs and stuff you get, and rather than giving out a huge amount of Kais of the one type, you just get a few of each type, which I guess that's okay. Having a quick look back through the list, obviously Super Saiyan Goku has a farmable super attack, Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta I'm pretty sure doesn't, Evil Buu doesn't, Metal Cooler does from his event, and then of course the farmable 13 could be used to do the INT one. Now, for those of you who have looked at it before, the farmable 13 is a horrendous grind. The medals are really annoying to get. Even me as a player who's my time on Dokkan is like over 1,200 days at this point, have never bothered to do this. One of the things that they added in when these EZA's came out was they revamped how you farm this guy up, and they made it a lot easier. So I will probably finally get around to doing it once this drops. So we're going to have a quick look at each of the units. We're not going to dwell on them for super long, because obviously I'll do each one will get their own video. We're going to have a quick look at what they were before and then what they awakened into. So we're going to start off with the INT Metal Cooler. 30% attack for all allies in Extreme Class Key +2. So for quite a while he was a good support unit for any Extreme team. 30% attack and 2 key. Not obviously so good for the Frieza team, or sorry, the Wicked Bloodline team, because of course he shares the same name with the leader, so it's a bit of a weird way to fit him in. But he does get used on artificial life forms, movie bosses, he can be pretty good, and then of course these last couple we don't have on global just yet. So once he gets his awakening, his leader skill becomes an all types leader skill, which could be quite useful for some people, I suppose. And then he gets attack and defense 50%. So a lot of the times we see this with EZA's, is just the units getting a little bit of a personal buff, which is very good, because nowadays in the kind of meta we're in with the type of harder events we've got, if units don't give themselves any defense, they open themselves up to being a huge liability in some of those tougher events. So he still gives attack plus 30%, but he gives 3 key and 40% defense. But again, that is only to Extreme Class allies. So I guess there are some places on like Resurrected Warriors, and I guess Movie Bosses has the Tapion on it, but you're usually going to be running on a team that's all extreme type enemies, so allies. So 30% attack, 40% defense, 3 key, very decent. Obviously still has the same problem with the naming thing in terms of Wicked Bloodline, but for movie bosses, Resurrected Warriors and Artificial Life Forms especially, he's going to be a very good support unit, so that's very good. Then this guy, this is one of the ones out of this list that gets a huge like glow up in how good he becomes. So supreme damage to the enemy, attack and defense 90% when HP is 80% or below. So if you take this guy into like Super Battle Road and you get him on turn 1, he has no passive, so he's really bad. Then he gets an EZA and he becomes supreme damage to the enemy and raises attack and defense by 30% for 6 turns. So that's already very good. Gives himself an attack and a defense buff. And then they change his attack and defense 90% to just straight up at the start of the turn, which is awesome because it means he gets it all the time regardless of your HP. And then defense plus 15% with each attack received up to 60%. So that means once he's received, what, 4 attacks, he's got 150% defense, and he raises defense by 30% for 6 turns, which means you can stack that twice. So he goes from having potentially no defense, depending on your HP, to having an incredible amount of defense, and he is very, very good at tanking. He will actually be very useful on Super Battle Road, especially when he is in a situation that you can get off a couple of supers with him first. He'll be able to deal pretty reasonable damage, but he's a unit that I would definitely say you want to give him more of a balance of additionals and crits rather than going like heavy on the crit. Just to get that, if you get that second super off in 1 turn to get the extra stack of this defensive buff, he's going to be even more of a wall when it comes to soaking up damage for you. So he definitely gets a huge improvement. And then we will go on to the INT Android 13. So supreme damage lowers defense, changes TEQ orbs to rainbow, and attack 50% before his EZA. And then he does supreme damage and massively lowers defense. Still changes TEQ key spheres to rainbow orbs. He gets 2 extra key per key sphere obtained. Attack and defense 50%, plus an additional attack and defense 13% per Android's category ally on the team. So, and he gets defense, which is good, as we discussed at the beginning. Units that do not give themselves any defense just don't really get used a lot unless they are hugely useful to the team in another way. So the orb changing, I guess it could be useful, depending on other units that you're running around him. The key +2 in addition per rainbow keysphere obtained seems very odd. Any unit that isn't an LR that has this kind of ability to get tons of extra key, it does seem kind of wasted, because the Android team links very, very well. He's probably usually only ever going to need like 4 key to super. So the fact that he has an ability that gives himself like 3 key for 1 orb collected seems kind of unnecessary. But this last part of his passive is what makes him stand out. Is attack and defense 13% per Android's category ally on the team with no restriction. So it should say down here in the notes, it does not. So with a full Android team, that's what, 7, because it includes himself and the friend. So you're looking at what, 91% extra attack and defense. So almost 150% attack and defense on a full Android team. So that suddenly becomes actually very good. That's like Dokkan Fest exclusive level attack and defense buff. So that is very, very useful. Massively lowering defense, not like the most useful ability, but definitely has some uses in events that are available currently. So he definitely becomes much, much better. And then we can go on to the free-to-play one. So again, supreme damage lowers defense. He gives himself 4 key and 70% when key is 8 or more. So as long as you get 8 key, he'll bump himself up to 12 for a super attack and attack 70%. But it means if you don't get 8 key, not only do you obviously not super, you don't get the attack buff, and of course he has no defensive buff. So post EZA, he again goes to greatly lowers defense. He gets Ki for attack and defense 80% when Ki is 8 or more, plus an additional attack and defense 30% if there are 3 or more Android category allies on the team. So, he doesn't get as big of a boost as the INT one. His maximum buff here is of course 120 if you have the 3 androids rather than just under 150. I feel like this part of his passive is slightly more useful than changing or like getting extra Ki from rainbow orbs. The fact that you only have to get 8 Ki to super. But the big thing that you have to remember about this, which is actually quite the liability, is this attack and defensive buff is tied into this when Ki is 8 or more. So if you have him as the first unit in the rotation and there are attacks in that first slot, he doesn't get this defensive buff when he takes those hits. So if something is based on your Ki, that is calculated when it becomes his turn to attack. So he does not get this defensive buff. So out of the two, the INT one is better. But I mean, honestly, that shouldn't come as any surprise considering the INT one is summonable and the TEQ one is a free-to-play farmable unit. So bearing that in mind that he is a free-to-play farmable unit, his EZA, he is very, very good. And of course, there's not a huge amount of, there's literally him or the INT one when it comes to Android 13s in the game anyway. So if you don't have the INT one, you can definitely run him on that team. So then we go over to STR Evil Buu. He is another one that gets quite a ridiculous upgrade. And I think he's going to be very useful. I'm really looking forward to trying him out on the Majin Buu Saga Super Battle Road stage. So he does supreme damage and raises attack for 3 turns. Attack plus 18,000 when HP is 99% or below. So again, he's another one of these units like the AGL Vegeta was, where if you have him on the first rotation when you're on 100% HP, he has no passive. I mean, that's really bad. And then of course, he has a flat boost as his attack buff, which is not ideal. So post EZA, he does supreme damage, raises attack for 6 turns, which, yeah, 6 turns up from 3, so you get that extra option to get the extra stack, which is very good. And then he gets attack and defense 90%, and that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. He just gets that, so that's very good. All enemies attack and defense minus 20%. I mean, straight away, that is a very useful ability, especially for Super Battle Road. But we're not done. Launches an additional super attack and high chance of evading enemies' attacks when there is a Majin Buu Saga category enemy. And that high chance is 50%. So, against Majin Buu Saga enemies, this guy suddenly becomes insanely good. He gets a guaranteed additional super and a 50% chance to dodge, whilst debuffing the enemy and having a fairly reasonable attack and defense boost. So he goes from being incredibly meh to being really, really good. Like, he's actually insanely good. Like, the physical Evil Buu that has an awakening, the summonable SR, is quite useful because he has a built-in chance to dodge and passively lowers the enemy's attack. And this guy does all of this and more. The only real difference is the physical one seals super attack, whereas this guy is more designed to be a harder hitting unit. And yeah, personally, I can't wait to try this guy out. A lot of these Battlefield EZA'S are, I mean, they're referred to that, I don't know if you are not aware of this, I guess. The community always comes up with like shorthand names for things, but it's because all of these units awaken with the Clash medals that you buy from the Battlefield shop. So, there you go. All of these units go from being like painfully average or even subpar to being very, very good once these EZA'S drop. So, this is a very good boost for a bunch of old units, which is the best part about EZA'S. So then we go on to probably one of the best or one of the most useful ones, is this physical Goku from the Metal Cooler movie. So he does supreme damage with a high chance to stun, which is good. Attack 10,000 and defense 5,000 when HP is 50% or above. So again, he's another one of these old type of units that, depending on how much HP you happen to be on at the start of the turn, he can essentially have no passive. But once he gets his EZA, he has a great chance to stun, which is 70%. So very, very good. Stunning is hugely useful in Super Battle Road. So considering the fact that this guy is on the Pure Saiyans team, which has its own category stage, he will be very useful for that. And then his passive, so he still has HP restriction type stuff, but rather than having no passive, he just has a slightly different passive. So now he has Ki +2, attack and defense 80%, and a high chance, which is 50%, to perform a crit when HP is 50% or above. So for the most part, that's going to be most of the time. So 80% to stats, 2 bonus Ki, 50% chance to crit. Then if you drop to 49% or below, you get 3 Ki, 100% attack and defense, and a 70% chance to perform a crit. So I feel like this is one of the guys who, on this list, probably the most, would make people rethink how to do his hidden potential system because of his EZA. This is a unit that you absolutely want to give like full additional, and then I guess put the rest in dodge. Like, you do not need to give this man any crit in the hidden potential system, because at a bare minimum he has a 50% chance to crit on top of a 70% chance to stun. And then of course if you drop below 50% HP, you have a 70% chance to crit. So you're going to be critting almost every time unless you get really unlucky. You're going to be critting constantly with this guy, and you're going to be stunning more often than not as well. So he is going to be a unit that I've been working on getting it done before now, and unfortunately, despite getting close, I haven't managed to actually finish it. But I think literally as soon as these EZAs drop, if they do come with part 2, I'm just going to use this guy to do the Pure Saiyans no item Super Battle Road run, because he's just going to be stunning everybody all over the place and critting and dealing a reasonable amount of damage because of a decent attack and defensive buff in his passive. So he is very, very good. And of course he's a Super Saiyan Goku, so he fits onto a ton of teams. He's got very good links for everyone else. He's just really, really good. And then last but not least, we have the Nova Shenron, who becomes a huge buff to the Shadow Dragon Saga team, which unfortunately is the only category that he's on. So he does supreme damage and raises attack for 3 turns, and then Ki +3 and attack 90% when facing only one enemy, which is of course a horribly restrictive passive. It means that in Shadow Dragon Saga Super Battle Road you're never going to use this guy, because literally until you get down to only having one enemy left, he has no passive, so you just wouldn't ever want to use him. And then even when he does, he doesn't give himself any defense, which, as we've discussed, very, very bad. So, post EZA, supreme damage and raises attack for 6 turns. Again, it's not the most amazing ability on units that aren't designed to be super hard hitting, but it's nice to get that little bit of extra damage, so we'll take that. He gets Ki +3, attack and defense 90%, and as you can see there is no restriction. That's kind of a common theme with all of these EZAs, if you haven't noticed this already, where a lot of them only gave themselves an attack boost, and it was potentially with a restriction, and what the EZA has done is given them the defensive boost to go alongside it, and then taken away that restriction, which just goes leaps and bounds to make these units very, very viable. And then, just to spice it up a little bit, he also gets a Shadow Dragon Saga support passive. So he gives allies attack and defense 30%. So he too becomes a unit that post EZA will be very useful on Super Battle Road, because the Shadow Dragon Saga team doesn't really have a lot of support units. You've got like the physical Pan, and that's pretty much it. There's the physical summonable SR Goku that awakens to Super Saiyan 3, but he's only a support unit for physical and tech units, whereas of course this guy supports everyone. So personally I think he is a very, very good option for the no item Super Battle Road run. Again, I haven't done the Shadow Dragon Saga yet, mainly because I don't have LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku, which does make it a lot harder, but having this guy's EZA is definitely going to help out, because not only does he help buff everybody else, but with his EZA stats and a 90% defense in his passive, he's able to at least take hits a little bit better than some of the other units available on that category. So, that is it for all of the units that are getting the Awakening. as we showed on here, we've got the typical 30-stage event, weak to the Ginyu Force team, so I'm sure once this drops you're going to see a lot of the Extreme TEQ Ginyu Gokus on your friends list. Obviously do your part and set your one as well to help everybody out. And yeah, of course I will stream this as soon as it is out, and we will do various videos on all of the units once they are fully EZA'd. But like I said, the fact that these guys are available with the redstone, I would say that pretty much guarantees that they're going to come as part 2. I don't want to say that with like 100% certainty just in case, but I would be very, very surprised if this doesn't drop with part 2 of the celebration, which would be very good, especially for me. After having not pulled Goku, part 1 has, my hype's been kind of deflated a little bit, but it seems like there are a lot of things coming with part 2, especially if this is also going to be one of them. So let me know down below in the comments, which of them is your favourite, which one do you think is the best, which one are you most excited to fully EZA and use first before any of the others. So I'm very interested to hear what you guys think down below. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. You can follow me on Twitch or join my Discord. The links are in the description below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.